You've probably never heard of an atlatl, but it's been a very common tool around the world for thousands of years. In fact, some of your own ancestors probably depended on the atlatl to survive. It's been very important for human societies, and in societies in which it has taken a very important role in daily use, it often takes on a form of religious significance. And this has been studied a lot by many different researchers of archaeology and history, such as Zachary Critchley and Robert Hall. And I've studied the topic myself for a few years. And what I'm going to talk about is what is an atlatl, its significance in Aztec, Mexican culture, and in native cultures in the United States. So what is it? I have one right here. I actually made it myself. Essentially, it's a spear thrower. You can dock a spear on this, and it allows you to generate more force than you would with a bow and arrow. It was particularly common to be used to hunt large game during the Ice Age. So you think of woolly mammoths or giant sloths or the things in the Ice Age movies. But it fell out of favor and was replaced by the bow and arrow in many societies because the bow and arrow had more sort of dexterous ability. It was better suited for hunting small game. But many cultures continued to use it, and some still use it today in places like the Amazon or Australia. And in Mexico, it continued to be in use, particularly as a weapon of war, because Mexican warfare necessitated the atlatl because the cotton armor worn by warriors couldn't be penetrated by a bow and arrow. It had to have something that could generate enough force, like an atlatl. And so for the Aztecs, we know that the atlatl represented something of a force, which it perpetuates the cycle of life, and it was particularly embodied by the morning star, which is Venus. People don't really look at the stars much anymore and know what the stars are, myself included, but the morning star, Venus, rises with the sun in the morning, and many cultures interpret that as it is what propels the sun. And it is commonly associated with the god Tlahuizcalpantecutli, and he is a god which is very much associated with the atlatl. And he represents both the atlatl warrior and Venus as the morning star. And he launches what are known as his darts of dawn, and that is what propels the sunrise every morning. And you may be familiar with the Aztec sunstone, which is commonly conceived of as the Mayan calendar during the whole 2012 thing when people thought the world was going to end. But it's like this right here, and essentially what Robert Hall argues is that that sunstone in that cosmology is actually a reflection of atlatl symbolism, and then that sunstone itself is sort of a perspective on the atlatl, and it derives from a particular story in which Tlahuizcalpantecutli kills a god of the sky, and she falls to the ground and fertilizes the world, and therefore perpetuating life for humanity. And it came to be represented symbolically in a manner of many different shapes. And even though in what is now the United States, native cultures did not use it very often, they did not use the atlatl after the introduction of the bow and arrow, but they continued to represent it in a series of different shapes. And some of those shapes were utilized in sort of abstract representations of the atlatl in iconography. We use one particularly famous one is this, actually on the cover of this book I have. This is the Etowah Morning Star carving, and many scholars argue that this right here, this scepter that he bears, is actually a representation of the atlatl, despite the fact that culture did not continue to use it. And the Ponca tribe in the Midwest utilized symbols which looked like that scepter and which bear a resemblance to the atlatl, and they use those symbols and they tattoo them upon a specially chosen woman in order to represent what they call a prayer for the continuation of human life. And it also continued to be represented in things such as flutes and pipes. And so, in conclusion, so across both North America and Mexico, the atlatl, it signified the continuation of life and the beginning of new phases. And we can confirm the existence of common religious traditions between societies across the continent. Interestingly, these similarities in use and meaning of the atlatl tell us that there are common religious themes across indigenous North American societies. Anyway, this is an example of how anthropologists, archaeologists, and historians can use material culture and oral traditions to understand the past. Thank you. I appreciate you listening.